It's official, Pokemon Go Fest 2025 is going to be going down in Osaka, Japan, May 29th to June 1st, Jersey City, June 6th to June 8th, Paris, France, June 13th to June 15th, and the Global Go Fest everyone can play June 21st and June 22nd. But the question is, what's going down during Go Fest? Well, I've analyzed the past years of Go Fest and made the best predictions for what we can expect from this year's Go Fest, and if all follows suit, it's gonna be a big one. Let's get into it. Okay, so most likely we'll get confirmation on all this info in March, because that's generally when we get the information about Go Fest. Every single year, a mythical Pokemon gets featured during the Pokemon Go Fest. Starting in 2018 Go Fest at the Lincoln Park in Chicago, all Go Fests have included a special research ticket, which leads us to a mythical Pokemon. 2018 was Celebi, 2019 was Jirachi, 2020 was Victini, 2021 was Meloetta, 2022 was Shaman in the Sky and Land form, 2023 was Diancie and Mega Diancie, and Go Fest 2024 was Marshadow. So the question is, what will this year's Go Fest Mythical be? Well, I have 4 predictions. Number 1, and my biggest bet, is going to be Manaphy. Manaphy, also known as the Prince of Seas, it is a Generation 4 Sinnoh Pokemon. And it's also famously included for not being included in the Sinnoh Tour 2024. If you remember, you remember. This Pokemon is a pure water type Pokemon, and it's pretty much like a duplicate of Mew, Celebi, and Jirachi. In the main series games, it's one of those mythical Pokemons that has base stats of 100 on everything. But Manaphy is an interesting Pokemon because it comes with a new feature. It's actually one of the only Pokemon that can breed with a Ditto to create a offspring of Phione, another mythical Pokemon, through the Manaphy egg. So it could be very interesting if we end up getting some sort of way for us to get this Manaphy egg. During the Sinnoh Tour run-up, Niantic did have some interviews with gaming journalists in which they said that Manaphy, Phione, and Arceus, the 3 remaining Pokemon for the Sinnoh Pokedex, are not going to be released during the Sinnoh Tour because they want these Pokemon to have their own spotlight. And of course, Go Fest could be a perfect opportunity for this. But maybe it's not big enough spotlight. So what if we end up getting Volcanion as our mythical? Volcanion is one of 3 Generation 6 mythical Pokemon. It is a fire and water type, really cool typing. It is one of those Pokemon that doesn't really have any unique abilities or qualities. It's just a cool Pokemon. But you never know with Pokemon Legends ZA, which is featured around the Kalos region. We could end up seeing some new form of Volcanion once we get more info about that new Pokemon game. Traditionally, excluding the Sinnoh Tour, we've seen Niantic giving access to all the Pokemon in a generation to complete a Pokedex, and Volcanion is actually the last Pokemon we need for the Generation 6 Pokedex, so it could be cool to finally complete our Generation 6 Pokedex at the Go Fest with Volcanion. Zeraora is my next prediction as a really cool mythical Pokemon that could come. It's a Generation 7 mythical Pokemon and a pure electric type Pokemon. This thing has a cool design. It has a very, very high likelihood as well as being this year's Go Fest mythical because of one main reason. Its shiny was just debuted. When it comes to the Go Tour events in February, Niantic tends to include a masterwork research that leads to a shiny version of a mythical Pokemon, which quickly limits what Pokemon they can really have in these masterwork researches because some shiny mythicals have never been released by Game Freak ever. Meaning that if we end up getting Zeraora, it's really, really easy for Niantic to then implement the shiny Zeraora into a future tour event. Think of it as this Pokemon already has all the necessary features to be monetized by Niantic because Game Freak have already distributed the shiny of this mythical, which they haven't for every single mythical there is. Magearna is the final prediction here, another Generation 7 mythical Pokemon. It is a Steel and Fairy type Pokemon. It does have a little unique feature in which there's 2 color variants on Magearna, one being a light pink tint metal colors and the other one being the original color Magearna. Not sure how they would implement that little thing. And both colors do have their own shiny variant, which is really, really cool. I guess if they decide to do it, they could end up doing something where, hey, if you attend the in-person Go Fest, you'll get the original color and then everyone else gets the other color. We'll have to wait and see how that goes, but it could make it special. We'll see if that's the mythical. But mythicals is not the only thing during Go Fest. We also have chase Pokemon and themes. The last 2 Go Fest introduced very powerful chase Pokemon. 2023, we saw the release of Mega Rayquaza, which is literally one of the best Pokemon in Pokemon Go. And in 2024, we got the introduction of the Fusion mechanic, a whole new mechanic, along with Necrozma and the super strong Dawnwings and Duskmane forms. On top of that, starting in 2021, Niantic started to introduce themes to Go Fest. 2021 was music themed, maybe because it was sponsored by Google Music. 2022 was all about the invasion of Ultra Beasts and the Sun and Moon storyline. 2023 was focused on Mega Evolution and Generation 6, where it all came from. 2024 was back to Sun and Moon, focused around fusion, the sun and the moon, all that stuff, and having the shadow like Marshadow blend into it. So what will the chase Pokemon be and the theme be? Number 1, and probably everyone's biggest prediction, Arceus. Arceus is another mythical Pokemon along with Manaphy and Fion from Generation 4. Arceus is actually the god of all Pokemon. It created every single Pokemon. Well, minus Bidoof. Bidoof created Arceus, but anyway. It is a pure normal type Pokemon, but it does have a really cool feature. If you don't know, Arceus is one of only 2 Pokemon that can change their type depending on what item they're holding. Giving Arceus different plates will change its type. You could have a dragon type Arceus, a bug, a fairy, a steel. You could have every single type of Arceus. This type changing mechanic could be a new cool feature for Niantic to implement during GoFest and potentially use in the future with Pokemon like Silvally. Arceus also does have a legacy move, Judgment, that will change type depending on what type Arceus is. So if you know, if a fire type Arceus, Judgment will be a fire type move. Of course, this could easily feature into an adventure effect for Niantic. I don't know what the adventure effect would do, but what I do know is that Arceus, Manaphy, and Fion could perfectly fit into a GoFest with a good theme around Generation 4. On top of that, all these Pokemon have a relationship with creating new life. There was an Arceus event in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver where you had the opportunity to choose a Dialga, Palkia, or a Giratina, and after choosing one, you would receive an egg that would hatch a legendary Pokemon. And like we know before, Manaphy can breed and create eggs that create legendary Pokemon, aka Fion. So a season like New Beginnings or New Life, blah, 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 could lead into an Arceus release. Could even end up seeing a Pikachu on an Arceus theme with an Arceus themed hat or a Dialga Palkia hat. I don't know. Different habitats themed around space, time, Arceus, the Shadow Realm for Giratina. The world is our oyster with the potential release of Arceus, and I'm definitely putting money down that this could be a release this year. But what if that's not your cup of tea? What if you don't think that's going to come? Well, the second way we could take it is towards Generation 8 and the release of Crown Zacian, Crown Zamazenta, and Eternatus. We do currently have Zacian and Zamazenta in Pokemon Go, but only in their Hero of Many Battles form. We do not have them in their ultimate Crown forms. This is where the power comes in. In their Crown forms, both Zacian and Zamazenta gain the Steel type and increase their stats. Zacian gets higher attack stat, meanwhile Zamazenta gets higher defense. Both these Pokemon will become top attackers. Zacian could even be a better Steel type attacker than Duskmane Necrozma. Both of them do have signature moves, with Crown Zacian having the Behemoth Blade move and Crown Zamazenta having Behemoth Bash. Both are Steel type moves. We'll have to wait and see how they end up releasing these Pokemon. Will it be a form changing or will they be released on their own? Really, I could see it going either way. We have seen Giratina get released with 2 different forms on their own, but we've also seen form changing. In the main series games, you do need a rusted sword, or I believe it's like a rusted shield, and you fuse it with a Zacian or a Zamazenta to get these forms. So we could end up seeing that item be released, and then you need some maybe like Zacian energy, and then some sort of that. That's how Niantic will make their money off this, but we'll have to wait and see. On the other hand, we could see something like Hoopa, where you have to pay Candy and Stardust to form change them between their forms, and you can do it at any point, back and forth. Granted, there'd clearly be a better form to be in. Of course, these legacy moves these Pokemon learn could also be put into adventure effects. Niantic loves adventure effects. I love adventure effects. I think the adventure effects could potentially have something linking to max battles. For Behemoth Blade, an adventure effect which will increase the damage output in raids, grunts, or max battles. Vice versa, Behemoth Blash, an adventure effect that would increase your defense in raids, grunt battles, max battles, whatever. This would be aligned with these Pokemon with their attack focused and more defense focused, and we'll have to wait and see. Now, obviously Dynamax has been a huge thing for Niantic, and the Gigantamax as well, so what a great way to also tie into this Generation 8 by introducing the powerful Eternatus, which is a very strong Pokemon. Now, Eternatus is a Poison and Dragon type Pokemon. It does have a powered up form called Eternamax Eternatus. It was never be able to be used outside of battle in the main series Pokemon games, but you were able to encounter it at the end of the Sword and Shield main series game, and this thing was absolutely huge. So Eternatus cannot Dynamax. It can Eternamax, I guess you could say, but theoretically it actually can't. It does have a signature move called Dynamax Cannon. And including Zacian and Zamazenta's signature moves, Dynamax Cannon deals double damage to Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon. And that's why I really think these Pokemon are going to come, because there's a big link into these signature moves being really good to take down Dynamax and Gigantamax. They could end up making an adventure effect out of this as well. Dynamax Cannon potentially linking around making Dynamax battles easier, or just around the Dynamax feature. When you have this adventure effect active, you could be collecting more max particles from power stops, or you could end up encountering wild Dynamax Pokemon off this Dynamax incense potentially. Overall, a lot of potentials for adventure effects with Dynamax Cannon. It leads us to the question, what's the theme here? Well, the theme is definitely going to be a fantasy style theme focused around knights and dragons. Obviously, we have Zacian and Zamazenta with the sword and the shield, and then we have Eternatus, which is the big dragon that they're trying to defeat. Could be along with some sort of like season of lost heroes, season of knights, I don't know, season of fantasy. A lot of potential for this theme. We could also throw Magearna into this bunch as the mythical Pokemon debut during this, because it does fit, obviously being a steel type Pokemon, a fairy type Pokemon the knight is saving. So that'd be really cool. As for Eternatus, on its release, it would be cool if we end up getting Eternatus Eternamax battles as a max boss to take down with huge lobby size of 20 or 40 or whatever to defeat this Pokemon. Of course, once you defeat it, you'll probably catch a regular Eternatus, which is most likely how Eternatus will end up being released, but it'd be really, really cool. Of course, along with the fantasy theme, we could end up seeing a Pikachu dressed up in a knight outfit or even like a princess outfit potentially, which would be fun for those Pikachu collectors. But yeah, overall, if GoFest goes that direction, I wouldn't be against it. This leads us to our next theme, which can be along the lines of 3 Pokemon we haven't discussed: Calyrex, Speckchair, and Glacier. I don't know if I'm saying that right. My English is terrible. Now, this idea might be left for a later Galar tour because these are Galarian-themed Pokemon, but Calyrex is the main legendary Pokemon that was released for the Crown Tundra DLC in the Sword of Shield games. And like Kyurem and Necrozma, it has the ability for fusion, and Niantic is clearly on the fusion grind right now because we're getting Kyurem fusion soon. Calyrex in its regular form is a Psychic and Grass type Pokemon, but it can fuse with 2 Pokemon, Speckchair or Glacier. One will turn them into Shadow Rider Calyrex, which is a Psychic and Ghost, and the other Ice Rider Calyrex, which is a Psychic and Ice type. Now, individually, these Pokemon aren't strong, but once they do fuse, they are very, very strong, which would be nice because it's going to be very easy to raid them, but still get a very, very strong Pokemon. They both do have signature moves, with Shadow Rider having Astral Barrage and Ice Rider having Glacial Lance, and both moves could, of course, receive an adventure effect. Now, unlike Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus, this Pokemon can actually Dynamax, so we could end up getting some sort of Dynamax form of these Pokemon as well, along with all of this. As for a potential GoFest feature in Calyrex, they could go with a theme linked to royalty, as Calyrex is classified as the King Pokemon in its regular form and the High King in its Shadow or Ice Rider form. Similar to Kyurem and Necrozma, most likely we'll see these Pokemon be released. You take them down, you get fusion energy, and then you can fuse them with either form. Again, we'll have to wait and see if we end up getting this as a choice for this GoFest, but most likely this will definitely be some sort of event in the future. But this leads us to our final prediction, which I think is actually going to be what GoFest is all about. And that's going to be Kubfu and its evolutions. Now, if you've been up to date with the data mines and the leaks, there's a lot pointing towards this being what GoFest 2025 will be. The legendary Pokemon Kubfu. I know, it might not look like a legendary Pokemon, but this Pokemon was released during the Isle of Armor DLC expansion for Sword of Shield. It's a pure fighting type Pokemon and one of the few legendaries that can actually evolve. In the Island of Armor storyline, you train a Kubfu and decide to take on and defeat one of the 2 towers called the Towers of Two Fists. The Water Tower held the Scroll of Water, which allows you to evolve Kubfu into Rapid Strike Urshifu, a fighting and water type Pokemon, and the Darkness Tower held the Scroll of Darkness that allows you to evolve Kubfu into the Single Strike Urshifu, a fighting and dark type. Urshifu's variants both have signature moves. The Rapid Strike can learn Surging Strikes, and the Single Strike can learn Wicked Blow. If Niantic were to give these moves to Urshifu, they could give these moves special effects in GBL, and also potentially adventure effects. In the main series games, these moves always land critical hits. We don't have critical hits in Pokemon Go, but some moves like Flower Trick in the main series games give you an attack boost. So most likely we'll end up seeing something where these moves end up giving these Pokemon attack boosts when you use them, which can make them really, really strong threats in the Master League. Urshifus also have a Gigantamax variant. It's one of the little legendary Pokemon that do. When you do Gigantamax, a Rapid Strike style Urshifu will get the G-Max move of Rapid Flow, and the Single Strike will get the G-Max move of One Blow. So how could these be released? Well, one method is to have a branch special research with the storylines following both forms in the Water and Dark, in which you will have the choice, of course, to catch a Kubfu and then make the decision, do you want the Rapid Strike or the Single Strike form? Niantic might also make us buddy our Kubfu, because that is a very, very big thing in the main series games where you have to buddy it to evolve it into Urshifu. So there might be something along the lines of that in which you have to make your buddy do some sort of task to evolve that Pokemon. Another option would be to introduce the first legendary Gigantamax battles at Power Stops. So similar into the Wild era where we got the debut of Gigantamax Toxtricity and Gigantamax. However, if they do end up releasing these Pokemon in Gigantamax, one thing that might be a trouble is that Kubfu and Urshifu are still shiny locked in the main series games. We talked about this earlier. This could obviously be fixed if they talk to the Pokemon Company and they're able to release these shinies before this happens. Like Shiny Meloetta, for example, was actually just recently shiny released, just so that they could actually end up legally giving it out during the Unova Tour. So they could end up, pulling some strings there. Now, when it comes to pairing a mythical Pokemon to this theme, I think Zeraora would be a great fit. While it doesn't fit the Kubfu style, it is a very fighting style Pokemon, aggressive, all that stuff. And it does have a signature move called Plasma Fists. The two towers you evolve Kubfu in the main series games are the Towers of Two Fists, so there's a little bit of a theme there. The theme of the season would probably be along something around scrolls, scrolls of knowledge, scrolls, sacred scrolls, whatever, because scrolls are a very, very important thing when it comes to evolving Kubfu in the main series games. So we could end up seeing some sort of whole season around, I guess, history and scrolls that lead us to Kubfu at the end, and maybe even some Pikachus in some water or darkness style costumes for anyone who loves Pikachu. But if that's you, just transfer them, bro. Just transfer them. Now, all this information should be confirmed around March, whether my predictions are right or not, because that's usually when we get the GoFest info. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel if you want to know if my predictions are right, but also watch the other videos on screen and let me know in the comments what predictions you agree with, which ones you think are going to happen, what you think will be coming during GoFest 2025. Follow for more tips. Peace.